During Thanksgiving dinner, my sister stood up and announced, "We've voted, and you're no longer part of the family." Everyone applauded. I let out a soft laugh and said, "Then I guess you won't be needing this anymore." I placed a folder on the table. As soon as she opened it, she started screaming. "Before we carve the turkey," Lucia said, rising from her chair with that practiced, arrogant smile that so characterized her, "there's something we need to say." Everyone fell silent. Forks stopped midair. My stomach clenched. I knew that tone. It was the same one she used when she got me grounded for 2 weeks at 14 for a party I didn't even attend. "We had a family vote," she continued, looking at everyone like a beauty queen about to be crowned, "and we've decided you're no longer part of the family." Silence and then applause. Applause. My cousin Carla was clapping like she was at a concert. Uncle Javier raised his wine glass in a toast. Even my mother, my own mother, laughed and said, "Well, someone had to say it." I sat frozen, staring at my plate. The stuffing was cold, but my blood was boiling. My father didn't even look at me. He just took a swig of his beer and mumbled, "Probably for the best." "Wow," I said, pushing my chair back slowly. "Did you actually rehearse this?" Lucia smiled even wider. "You've been toxic for years. We're finally done pretending." "You're not family anymore," my mother added, reaching for the cranberry sauce as if we were discussing the weather. It was unanimous. I looked around. No one said anything. Not a single person. "Fine," I said quietly. Then I reached into my bag. "I figured this might happen," I added, pulling out a thick folder and placing it carefully in the center of the table. The thud cut through the laughter immediately. Lucia blinked. "What is that?" I smiled. I leaned back in my chair and crossed my arms. "Why don't you find out?" She snatched it and ripped it open, with that sarcastic smile she always wore when she thought she'd won. She turned the first page and the smile vanished. Her face paled. Her eyes darted to the next page and the next. And then she screamed. I mean, really screamed like in a horror movie. The chair fell behind her as she shot to her feet, slamming the folder shut like it had burned her hands. "You monster," she shrieked. "You heartless, cruel person." Gasps rippled around the table. Ruben, her husband, took the folder from her and opened it. His jaw dropped as he read. He looked at me. "Is this?" I nodded once. "It's all real," I said. "Every word. Every receipt. Every screenshot." The table fell completely silent. You could hear the clink of a fork dropping in the kitchen. My mother's mouth opened and then closed again, like a fish out of water. "They were so sure I wouldn't defend myself." "You were so sure," I said, standing up slowly, "that I would just stay quiet. The doormat. The ATM. But you know what?" I leaned in, looking Lucia directly in the eye. "Your little show is over. You want to know what's in the folder? We'll get to that. But first, let me tell you how we got here. Because Lucia didn't just wake up one day and decide I wasn't part of the family. That decision was built over years. Brick by brick. Comment by comment. Betrayal by betrayal. I was never the favorite, not even close. Lucia was the star. The golden child. Good grades. Big smile. She knew how to win people over. She could lie to someone's face and have them thank her for it. Me? I was quiet. Reserved. I didn't need attention. And that infuriated them. They took my silence as weakness. I left home at 19. I paid for college myself. Worked 2 jobs. Never asked for help. Meanwhile, Lucia failed out of 2 majors, went to Europe to find herself, then came home and married Ruben, the human equivalent of a LinkedIn profile in a blazer. The wedding? I paid for half. My parents couldn't afford it, but somehow they could afford a 2-week cruise right after. I never complained. Never did. Even when they joked about me being the family accountant, I kept helping. I paid for Dad's dental surgery. Sent money when Mom said they couldn't afford the heating bill. Even covered part of my cousin Carla's college tuition when she was waitlisted for a scholarship. They always said thank you, sure, but with that tone. The one that said, "Well, of course you'll help, you don't have a family of your own." And maybe that's what changed everything. See, I'm single. No kids. No partner. No drama. Just me, my job, and my dog. And to them, that meant I had nothing better to do than fund their messes. Especially Lucia. She treated me like her personal safety net. When Ruben lost his job, I got the call first. Just a small loan. When her car broke down, you make six figures, what's 2,000 euros? When their daughter needed therapy and insurance wouldn't cover it. Yeah, guess who she called? I always helped. Always. Because I kept telling myself it was for family. But helping became obligation, then expectation, then demand. It started small. Venomous jokes at dinner. Oh, you brought wine. Fancy being able to afford good wine. Of course you're early. You don't have kids to worry about. I wish I could work late and avoid my husband too. Then it got worse. You're so cold, maybe that's why you're still alone. You don't understand real stress. You don't have a real life. You're bitter because no one needs you. Except they did need me. Constantly. Financially. Silently. Behind closed doors. And then came the text message. Lucia. Hey, can you co-sign a small loan? Ruben and I want to open a juice bar. Me? No. Lucia? Seriously? And then silence. That was 3 months ago. Since then I'd been ghosted. Mom stopped calling. Dad sent one-word replies. No one invited me to the last family dinner. Lucia blocked me on social media after posting a story about distancing herself from toxic people. But I didn't sit around crying. I started digging. For receipts. Literally receipts. See, I keep records. Bank transfers. Emails. Screenshots. Dates. I'm not stupid. And in the last 5 years alone, I had sent over 78,000 euros to various family members.
78,000 €.
8,000 for Ruben's rehab. 2,300 for Lucia's dental emergency that turned out to be cosmetic veneers. 1,000 for Dad's back surgery. 12,000 for Mom's credit card debt. 6,000 for Carla's college move. 4,500 for a family emergency. That was actually a trip to Cabo. And not once did anyone offer to pay me back. They just took. And when I stopped giving, they decided I was the problem. So I made the folder. Inside was every proof of transfer. Every email and text asking for money. Screenshots of Lucia calling me a spineless cash cow to her friend because I denied her the loan. A timeline of every major payment I made in the last 5 years. And the cherry on top? Copies of Facebook and Instagram posts where they mocked me. I have screenshots of Lucia calling me a spineless cash cow, in a private comment thread she didn't know I had access to. So yeah, that's what she saw when she opened the folder. That's what made her scream. Because Lucia wasn't just exposed, she was dismantled. Fact by fact. Line by line. Page by page. All while the rest of the family slowly realized what they'd done. My mother looked like she was about to faint. Ruben stared at the line that read Euro 4,200 to cover Lucia's credit card. Used at a hotel in Marbella with someone named Patricia, and just said, "What is this?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in my life I wasn't defending myself. I was simply showing them the truth. You kept all the records? My mother finally asked, her voice trembling. Of everything. I turned to her as calm as ever. You never remembered anything, so someone had to. Lucia was still standing, still pale, fists clenched at her sides. Her eyes darted from Ruben to me, then back to the folder. This is a violation, she spat. You had no right. I had no right? I said, standing up slowly. You just stood up in front of this entire family and declared I'm no longer a part of it. You all applauded. And now you're upset that I came prepared. Ruben turned another page in the folder. What's this about Marbella? He asked, his voice tight. Lucia's head snapped towards him. Don't. Who is Patricia? He pressed. Why were you at a hotel for 3 nights on my card? Her silence was louder than any answer. Wait. My mother interjected, holding up her hands. Can we all just calm down and talk about this rationally? Sure, I replied. Let's be rational. Let's talk about that time you called me a parasite while cashing the check I sent you. She blinked. That's not fair. We were under a lot of pressure. No, I retorted, my voice hardening. You were under pressure. And I bailed you out. Again. And again. And again. And the one time I say no, suddenly I'm the enemy. My father, who until then had remained completely silent, finally spoke. Aren't you overreacting? Aren't you making this bigger than it is? I turned to him, my voice dropping in volume but not intensity. You let them do this to me. For years. Did you know? Did you see? Did you hear? And you let it happen. Because it was easier than standing up to them. He didn't deny it. Lucia slammed her hand on the table. You're just resentful because no one needs you anymore. You're wrong, I said coldly. I'm not resentful. I'm done. She let out a bitter laugh. You're pathetic. Do you have any idea how ridiculous you look? Bringing a folder? Printing out screenshots? You really think that makes you the victim? You're just proving you're a controlling obsessive. And you're just proving, I retorted, that you only cared as long as I was paying your bills. You have no right to play the victim, she yelled. You chose to help. No one forced you. And yet, I said, taking a step forward, you expected it. Every single time. Until it stopped being help and became duty. And when I stopped, what did you do? You voted me out. My voice cracked, not from sadness but from rage. You didn't want a brother. You wanted a wallet with legs. Ruben stood up, the folder still in his hand. Is this true? He asked, looking at Lucia. All of this. Lucia looked at him, and for the first time she had no answer. There were no fake tears, no deflections. Just silence. You lied to me, he said. About the hotel. About the money. About him. You made it seem like I was crazy. I didn't do that, I said. You did it to yourself. The room went silent again. Then my mother leaned forward, trying one last time, her voice turning soft. Listen, honey, we might have overreacted, but we're still family. And families fight. Let's just put this behind us. And I cut her off. You're not listening to me. She blinked. What? I'm not asking for peace. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm telling you. I'm done. Lucia's lips curled in disdain. Oh, stop pretending this is some big moment. You've said it before. I looked her directly in the eye. Never like this. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out another envelope. Now what? My father asked, visibly exhausted. I tossed the envelope on the table. Ruben caught it before it slid off and opened it. He read the first line. His eyes went wide. What is this? He whispered. I answered for him. Revocation forms. Power of attorney for mom? Revoked. Medical power of attorney? Revoked. Emergency contact? Removed. I've already signed the paperwork. Legally and emotionally. I am no longer responsible for any of you. My mother gasped. You're cutting all ties? Completely. Yes, I replied. From this moment forward. This is selfish, she said, tears starting to well up. We made mistakes, but we're still your family. I looked at her and my voice dropped again, quiet, final. No, you're not. I grabbed my coat, looked at them one last time and walked out the door, leaving them in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner. Stunned. Silent. Surrounded by cold food and uncomfortable truths. I walked out and didn't look back. Not because it didn't hurt. It did. But as I closed that door behind me, as I walked off the porch and into the cool night air, I felt something inside me shift. For the first time in years I could breathe. I didn't drive straight home. I took a detour and went to the lake I used to go to as a kid. The place Dad used to take me fishing. I sat in silence, staring at the still water and feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Nothing. Pulling at me. No guilt. No pressure. No one expecting a check, a favor, a visit. Just silence. The next morning, silence. The day after that, still nothing. But on the third day, the messages started. First my mother. A missed call. Then another. Then a voicemail. Were you serious? We were angry, but we're still your family. I didn't respond. Then came Lucia's messages. You don't even realize what you've done. Ruben is filing for divorce. Are you happy? Something is seriously wrong with you. Then my father. You went too far. We all said things we didn't mean. But what you did was a nuclear bomb. Your mother is devastated. Come fix this. I didn't respond to any of them. And honestly, I thought I'd feel guilty. That I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, wondering if I'd gone too far. But instead, I slept better than I had in years. I didn't hesitate before reading a message anymore. I didn't dread the next disappointment. I didn't get midnight BISM requests wrapped in guilt, disguised as emergencies. For the first time in a decade, I could hear my own thoughts. I started waking up early, going for runs, making coffee slowly. I made appointments with the dentist, the doctor, even a therapist. Not because I was broken, but because I could finally take care of myself. I updated my emergency contacts, removed my parents, changed my passwords, froze all joint accounts they had access to, blocked Lucia on every platform. This wasn't about revenge. It was about closure. A week after Thanksgiving, I got a message from Carla, my cousin, the one who applauded when they kicked me out. I didn't know you paid my tuition. I'm sorry. I got caught up in the mob. You were always the one who actually helped. I didn't respond, but I read it twice. And then another surprise. A message from Ruben. I filed the papers. Everything in the folder checked out. She lied. She cheated. She manipulated. Not just you, me too. He added, you did the right thing. I should have left a long time ago. I didn't expect it. But his words landed. A few days later, I did something I hadn't done in years. I applied for a job in another city. Not because I was running away, but because I was finally free. No more, you should stay close to home. No more, who will take care of them if you leave? I started reconnecting with friends I hadn't seen in years. People I'd drifted away from because I was always too busy with family stuff. And the most surprising thing? Some of them had seen my post on Forocoches. They reached out. Just to say, we're proud of you. That was brave. No one asked me for money. No one manipulated me. No one tried to twist the narrative. Just support. Simple. Honest. Clean. Someone asked me, do you have any regrets? I thought about it for a few seconds. Then I answered, I only regret not doing it sooner. I thought that was the end. And in a way it was. But with people like them, nothing ever ends cleanly. Especially when they start to feel the consequences of your absence. The first few weeks after Thanksgiving were quiet. Beautifully, unnervingly quiet. No calls. No guilt trips. Just peace. Until Christmas rolled around. On December 22nd, I got a text from my mother. Just a photo. It was their living room, decorated with Christmas stockings. A half-decorated tree. And in the center, a huge empty space where they usually piled the presents. Doesn't feel the same without you, the caption read. Claudia keeps asking why Tio isn't coming this year. I stared at it for a long time. No apology. No ownership. Just that same manipulative tone. Look what you've done. Look who you're hurting. I didn't respond. December 23rd. Lucia tried to call. I let it ring. Then came the text. I know I messed up. But you don't have to punish everyone. Just come over for Claudia. She misses you. 2 minutes later. Also, Mom and Dad are behind on the mortgage. I know you don't care now, but the bank called today. Thought you'd want to know. There it was. The ask. Always wrapped in guilt. Always disguised as sweetness. But always ending the same way. With a request. I blocked the number. December 24th. Another text. This time from my father. You've made your point. We get it. But enough is enough. We need help. We're still your blood. That night, I sat alone by the fireplace with a glass of wine. I looked around my small apartment. No tree. No noise. Just me and that silence they always said would destroy me. And for the first time in my life, I was grateful for that silence. But it didn't end there. January. I got a call from an unknown number. I answered out of habit. Is this Augusto? A man's voice asked. Yes, who's this? My name is Miguel, he said. I'm calling on behalf of your father. He mentioned you're the primary executor of the family trust. Is that correct? I froze. We revoked that 2 months ago, I replied. The family lawyer handled it. My name isn't on anything anymore. The man paused. I understand. Your father said he couldn't reach you directly and asked me to explore options. They're in a bit of a bind. Of course they were. Lucia and my parents had run out of options. The ATM was closed. The safety net was gone. Now they were scrambling. I hung up without another word. But the final straw came in February. I received an envelope in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. But I recognized my mother's handwriting instantly. Inside, a 3-page letter. The first page was full of regret. We said things in the heat of the moment. You were always the strong one. We never realized how much we depended on you. The second page played the guilt card. Your father's health isn't good. Lucia is completely alone now. We're worried about Claudia. She's having a hard time. And the third page? That was the hook. We're going to have to sell the house, but the mortgage is underwater. We just need a little help to get out from under it. Then we won't ask you for anything again. Please, Augusto. Do it for your father. Do it for the family. I sat with the letter in my hands for a while. I allowed myself to feel everything they wanted me to feel. The weight of responsibility, the pang of obligation, the aching need to fix what was broken. Then I folded the letter, stood up, walked to the kitchen, and threw it in the trash. The truth is this. They weren't asking for help. They were asking for access. Again, they didn't want me back in the family. They wanted the version of me that never said no. The one who paid silently. The one who sacrificed silently. The one who suffered silently. But that version of me doesn't exist anymore. I'm not their scapegoat. I'm not their cash cow. I'm not the duct tape holding a broken house together. I'm done. And what scares them the most? I'm perfectly fine without them. I got a new job. Moved to a new city. Bigger apartment. A blank page. I started volunteering on the weekends. Not because someone needed me to, but because I wanted to. I'm building a life where no one calls me at 11 p.m. to cover a mistake they don't want to own. A life where I'm not punished for being independent. Where kindness isn't used as currency. I don't regret helping them. But I do regret how long it took me to stop. You want to know what real peace is? It's not being surrounded by family. It's being free from the people who only call you family when they need something. Update months later. I didn't think this story would get any traction. Honestly, I just needed to tell it. Put it somewhere. But I read every comment. To those who said, you were brave. They don't deserve you. Thank you. I didn't know how much I needed to hear that until I read it. And to the few who asked, what if they change? Yeah, I've wondered that too. It's been a few months now. They didn't change. After I cut them off. After the folder. The yelling. The silence. The letters. I thought maybe, just maybe, someone would get it. Would reflect. Would say, I'm sorry. They didn't. They went quiet for a while. Then strategic. Then desperate. Then cruel again. And me? I got free. I've since moved to a new place. Found a job that doesn't steal my sleep. Started therapy. Real therapy. The kind where you stop trying to fix everyone else and finally learn to sit with yourself. Cook for one now. Sleep better. Go out more. I don't flinch when my phone vibrates anymore. And yes, sometimes I think about Claudia. What they're teaching her. What she'll grow up believing is normal. But I also know this. I was the example of someone who finally said enough. A few days ago, I got another handwritten letter from my mother. 3 words. We're still family. No context. No apology. No change. Just the same old hook. And for the first time I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just nothing. I threw it in the trash. And started making dinner. And now back here. Because this place gave me a clarity I didn't expect. Strangers saw me more clearly than my own blood. So this is what I want to ask. Did I do the right thing? Cutting the cord? Dropping the weight? Not fulfilling the role? Was I too cold? Or did I finally stop being the only one holding everything up? I don't know. But I do know this. For the first time in my life, I'm not surviving. I'm living.